Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the Business Events Podcast, a podcast that hosts interviews and discussion panels with experts from the business events industry and academia. I am Monica Martins, and today I will be joined by Raquel Brito. Hi, Raquel, how are you? Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
And we are going to interview Carolene Meli, an experienced strategist who helps businesses create exceptional experiences for their employees and their guests through inspiring workshops, speaking, and one-to-one consulting. Carolene has spent the last 10 years on tour with Cirque du Soleil, running front of house departments in 17 different countries and over 50 different cities worldwide. Hi, Carolene. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. So good.
I'm very excited for our conversation. So let's
Me
dive
too.
in.
We have been following you on social media, and Raquel and I have been watching your videos, and we are super excited to speak with you today. We can't wait to know more about what you do, because your work is really inspirational, as it is the way you are living your life. So let's start then. As an experienced strategist, can you please let us know a bit more about what exactly is that you do? What is an experienced strategist?
Yes, so an experienced strategist, honestly, I made the term up because I was trying to find a way of really selling myself and my brand in a way that is really going to resonate with my potential clients. And this is something new that has come about in 2020, and I know we'll get into 2020 a little bit later, but this was really an opportunity 2020 for me to say, okay, what is my expertise? What am I really good at? What do I love? And who are the type of people that I want to serve and that I want to connect with? And hence, Experience Strategist was born. So for me, it was really important to focus on specifically on the experience. So at the beginning, I was looking at a couple of niches that I naturally fell into due to my past work with Cirque du Soleil or on the cruise ship or different professional experiences that I've had, but also what I really loved. You know, I'm a full-time traveler and have been for a very long time. So I kind of started diving into travel, events, entertainment. But as we all know, this is the year that those three industries have been almost completely decimated by the pandemic. And so then I really started to think, okay, if they are specifically not my target, then what is my target? And what I realized was my niche was the experience itself. And so it doesn't matter where my clients are coming from, what part of the world they're coming from, what industry they're in. I am focused solely on the experience that they are giving. So that might be to their clients, it might be to their customers, or, you know, in an events point of view, a large amount of people. So I really thought to myself, how can I create an exceptional experience? And there's many strategies that I use and many different ways that I work with different clients, but that is my focus. What you have in your head as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, as the manager, how can I help you bring that to life through the experience itself? So that's really the basis of everything that I do. And I do that through a number of different modalities. I host workshops where I work with a group of people, a team, on different areas such as the journey of your customer or how to engage more with your employees that are offering the experience. And then, as you mentioned, I do one-on-one consulting, really deep diving with the business owner or the manager of the event or a typical person like that. And then I also do some speaking opportunities as well for different groups of people, really looking at the experience.
You say that one great experience can change someone's world. What do this experience consist of in terms of tourism, events, and now in terms of virtuality?
Yeah, so that's kind of a phrase that it was inspired by a movie that I'd seen, and there was a line in there that said, it was the movie School of Rock, and at the end, Jack Black, when they're about to go on stage, says, "One great rock show can change the world." And so I kind of, obviously, I grabbed onto that and I changed it in terms of what I was doing. And I truly believe that there's so much impact in an experience. And that could be a simple experience as going to the supermarket, you know, or it could be going on a transformational retreat, or a huge event. There's so many different experiences that we have on a day-to-day basis, and I really am trying to focus on the impact that can create. If we take the supermarket example, if you go to the supermarket, just say you go first thing in the morning and you have a terrible experience, that the staff are rude to you, you can't find what you need, maybe your card doesn't work, you have to line up forever, that is going to impact you in a negative way, isn't it? And then that will dictate the rest of your day. Whereas if that is an incredible experience, then your day will change based on that. And not only for yourself, but the people around you. So when I'm looking at whether it's an event, especially if we take travel, for example, as an industry, everybody knows that when they go on a trip, they're going to be impacted in some way, hopefully positively. You know, we all go on trips, no matter what our intention is, whether it's a vacation, whether it's a honeymoon, whether it's, you know, a charity event or a charity trip, or we're exploring something for the first time. It's really about, wow, how is this going to impact us and really transform us? And when we think about the experiences that we've had, let's say in the last 10 to 20 years or a time frame like that, there are certain memories that we still can remember now that happened ages ago, and we can still recall them really quite specifically. So that phrase, one great experience can change someone's world, I created that for me as a way to, how can I use that to guide everything that I'm doing as an experience strategist, and the impact that I'm having on my clients, so that they can then go and create exceptional experiences for the people that they serve.
Beautiful. So what benefits exactly do this experience you create bring to the companies you work with and their employers also?
Yeah, so I focus a lot on the journey of the customer and really understanding what the journey of the customer is, and also how you can harness your employees to actually deliver on that experience. I'm sure we can all think of an example where we, especially traveling, where we had this experience. The experience was good just naturally because it was good. Maybe it was like a wonder, you know, or you went and saw something physical that was actually there and it was incredible. But maybe the staff were really bad, you know, and they were rude, or they were uninterested, or they were uneducated about what they were offering. Or maybe the other way around, you have there is an experience, it's a super average experience, you're like, oh, this was so not worth it. But there was one or two staff members that were just awesome, and you know, you took down their name because you wanted to remember them, and you saw like how passionate they were about what they were offering. And so we've all had these different elements of the experience, and so a lot of my work is, okay, how can we take the journey of the guest and almost the journey of the employee and kind of mesh them together so that we can improve the experience that we're offering. And that's really what I do with my clients. So we have a deep dive. We look into how the guest gets to the experience itself, you know, whether it's live, whether it's virtual. I'll take Cirque du Soleil as the perfect example. When you go to a show, you know you're going to see something incredible, right? It's almost guaranteed. But if you arrive and, you know, you catch public transport and the metro was down, and so you had to change, and then you were late because of that, or you were driving and the parking was terrible, and then you get to the front gate and you have to go through security, but you have to take all your stuff out and it's a big mess and it's super stressful, and then you can't find your ticket, and then you have to wait in line for ages to use the bathroom or to buy some popcorn, and then finally you get to your seat. But by the time that has happened, you're just completely exhausted, you're over it, you just want to go home. And that is part of the journey, right, of you actually getting to sitting in your seat and watching the show. And oftentimes my clients and people that I speak to focus too much on the main event. If it was Cirque du Soleil, it would be the show itself, and dismiss a lot of the elements that comprise that journey before they actually get there, right? It's so important. You want the minute somebody interacts with your brand to be incredible. From the minute they come onto your website, so you have an incredible website that's really going to draw them in, all the way through to how you communicate with them, how you help them fall in love with your brand, and then all the way to the experience. And then of course, the relationship that you keep with them after the fact. So that is a lot of my work with my clients, is like, how can we deeply understand the journey of the guest? And then the second element is really around the employees. How can you create the most exceptional experience for them, so that they will in turn create an exceptional experience for the guests? Because you as the business owner, the manager, the entrepreneur are not necessarily going to be physically in touch with your guests on a day-to-day basis. It's going to be your teams a lot of the time, if you have a team. So that's really how I help my clients, and with the goal that they are then helping their guests and creating exceptional experiences for their audience, the people they serve.
Yeah, this whole process needs, of course, is important for the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Really important role that you play in helping companies. And yeah, it's kind of, you can work with everybody to make everybody have the best experience possible. And
exactly.
How was it that you started working with Cirque du Soleil? I'm very curious about that.
Yes, it's the number one question, I think. That, and then, are you an acrobat? And of course, the answer is no. But with Cirque du Soleil, in terms of the touring shows, so there's obviously some shows that don't move around, like in Las Vegas, but the ones that are touring in a big top, every city that we go to, we hire local employees for two main reasons. Obviously, we want to support the local economy through employment, but also it's very important that the teams that are interacting the most with the guests, so our staff, my staff, actually speak the language of the guests. And when you're touring, say, for example, Australia, North America for a number of years, it's not a big deal because English is the first language. Me, for the most part, I toured in Europe. So in Europe, not only are we changing cities every 6 to 8 weeks, but we're changing countries, we're changing languages, we're changing cultures. So it's very important that the staff actually speak the language from the guest and ideally come from that country. And that's how I started. So I grew up in Brisbane in Australia, and Cirque du Soleil, I actually grew up a gymnast, has no correlation at all with one another. But so I always knew of Cirque du Soleil, and Cirque du Soleil is very popular in Australia. And so they were coming every 2 years or so. And so, you know, I was studying at university. They came to town, as you say, and I applied for a job just working in the bar, and I got hired for that. And then that kind of started this 10-year relationship with Cirque du Soleil, where I did really well. I got kind of promoted to, you know, an assistant position. That was still a local position. It wasn't officially working with Cirque du Soleil. And then I went back to university once the show had left. And then a couple of years later, the same thing happened. And I had the opportunity to apply for a full-time position on tour. So that's kind of how my entry in to Cirque du Soleil happened. Yeah.
Incredible. So what is that you like the most about the job you do, and how did you decide to live in the Mediterranean? Why did you choose now Montenegro?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I was born in New Zealand. I grew up in Australia. My mother's from New Zealand, my father's French. And I have never, even though I spent 20 years of my life in Australia, more or less, I've never really felt connected to Australia. And I never felt that I belonged there. And even now, when I go back every couple of years to see my parents, I don't feel any connection to there whatsoever, which is strange. I think after 20 years of living in that one place, but I always felt a lot more connected to my father's side. And, you know, his grandmother was Spanish, and then our last name was Maltese, going back and back. And so there's this element of Mediterranean in my past, if you will, or my heritage, that I gravitated towards as an adult, and have never really kind of lost that feeling. And so when people say, where are you from? I always joke and I say, well, my soul is Mediterranean. That's the most important thing. The journey up until that point, it doesn't matter, but that's where it started. And so I know that the Mediterranean is where I belong. And what I love about the Mediterranean, and, you know, you guys are close by, is that there's one country to the next so quickly and so easily. Well, if you're European, I guess. But there's just this incredible spirit around the Mediterranean Sea. I think there's so much power in this area, and so much history. And when you look at mythology, even that far back, it's such an incredible place. And so in terms of Montenegro, which is currently where I'm based, it's not really by choice, I would say. When the pandemic happened, because I'm a full-time traveler, I don't really have a home per se. And so, I was on tour with Cirque du Soleil for 10 years, so I didn't need a home. And when the pandemic started, I decided to do lockdown in France because I was there and it was just an easy option. And then once we started to come out of lockdown, I was thinking, okay, where am I going to go to help me build this business and to start connecting with clients? And my sister actually is based here in Montenegro. Her and her partner were part of a team that opens a 5-star boutique hotel here. She's a chef. And they had just bought a little investment studio apartment, and for the goal of, Airbnb long term. And they said, we've got no travelers right now. Why don't you come here? You can live in the apartment, and then you can kind of build your business from there. And that's why I'm in Montenegro. So it's a bit of a transient step. My goal next year is actually to move to Greece. Greece is where, for some reason, I feel like I need to go and be for the next few years. But it's interesting when you end up in a place such as myself here in Montenegro that you weren't expecting. And then and it's a cool way to discover a new country, right? When you had I had no plans of coming to Montenegro pretty much ever. It was never really on my radar. And so it's very interesting and cool to be here now and actually explore and experience it as a local almost. So yeah.
You are a example that home is where we are.
Yeah, exactly. 1,000%.
Absolutely. That's absolutely fantastic. And so you work completely remotely with your clients, and they are based in different parts of the world. And do you have a team supporting you, or you do everything by yourself right now?
So for now I'm by myself, solopreneur style. This business I've just started in 2020. So it's in its, infant stage, if you will. And a lot of my brand is drawing on my experience, so eventually there may be a point where team members may come into play. But right now it's really important for me. I'm connecting with my clients and I'm actually sharing my unique expertise with them. And so, yeah, they are all over the world. Obviously right now everything is virtual, but the goal would eventually be to help support experiences around the world that I could actually go and support them from a consulting basis physically there. That's what I would love to do. But, the world is determining that, if that's going to be possible or not soon. So for now, everything is virtual.
Right. So, but do you need, for example, if you organize an experience for someone in the Canary Islands, do you need to travel there for organizing it, or you can just do everything from the place where you are based at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm not really an event planner per se. So I'm not going to come in and create an entire event from start to finish. I can do that, but that's not the focus necessarily of my work. The clients that I work with, and really my focus is taking what somebody has already and how can we make it better? Because oftentimes it's the business owner or the person that created that experience. They're the one that have the passion about it. They're the ones that created it. It's their baby, but they need a little bit of help in terms of executing it. So, if we were taking the Canary Islands, for example, right now it would be virtual. And so what I would be doing, if somebody had an experience there, no matter what it was, I would really be diving in step by step. And what is this experience? How do we want our guests to feel when they come and interact with us and our brand? And then what are the elements that we can actually improve on or add or subtract sometimes so that we can create more impact, and then obviously more profitability for the business in the long term. That's going to be a huge goal. So that's really where I focus. If somebody is looking to create an experience from scratch, that's amazing. I love being a part of that as well. And then I would work with that person to help kind of bring their vision to life and execute on their vision. But the base, the idea, the vision is going to be theirs. And then I'm coming to support them and using my expertise to really help make that a successful experience.
How did this pandemic impact your career?
Hugely, because I completely changed careers, I guess you could say. So yeah, at the beginning of the year, I was working with Cirque du Soleil. I definitely was at the end of my time there, just in terms of my own personal growth and development. I was ready for that next stage, not knowing what that may be. And you know, as the turn of the year happens last year, I was like, okay, starting to make some goals and starting to think about next steps. And then that decision was kind of made for me. And that's when I really thought, okay, I have a lot of value that I believe that I can kind of give to the world and give to people creating experiences. And I really want to harness that and turn that into a brand. So that's really what 2020 did. And, you know, as we've spoken about on the podcast already, it was very much, okay, my industries that I have the expertise in are the industries that suffered the most and are suffering the most through the pandemic. So then how can I use my expertise for them? And so I created a weekly newsletter to help with those particular clients, especially in these industries that don't necessarily have the budget now to go and hire an external consultant. So I have a weekly newsletter that people can sign up for with tips and advice and expertise really around the topic of creating experiences. And then I also have just recently started a YouTube series called The Experience Creators, where I interview experience creators from around the world. And again, to help educate, to help support businesses, especially that wouldn't be able to necessarily hire me at this moment, but still need a lot of help. And that's kind of my way of providing them value. So it's all this year, I think everyone can agree, it's like learning and pivoting, and then, okay, what can I create? And then maybe who can I create this for? And so it's this constant evolution of implementing and then learning and then implementing, and then things change again. For example, today in Montenegro, we're waiting to hear today if we're going to maybe go back into lockdown or if the restrictions of curfew may be lifted. So, you know, you just never know, right? So it's almost like on a day-to-day, week-by-week basis. So, yeah, 2020 has been an incredibly, it's been a huge pivot for me, but even though it's been challenging at times, for me, it's been incredible to see the potential that my expertise and my brand can be in the future.
How do you assess the impact of new technology during the pandemic within your sector? Have you included some new either software or devices to perform your daily duties due to the pandemic?
Yeah, so what I'm doing with my work, I'm always going to be virtual in some regard, right? I want to work with clients no matter where they are in the world. And so whether I'm physically there with them or not, I'm always going to be relying on technology to communicate with them, to work with them, and to actually bring them value. And so this year, again, has been learning about what are the tools that we have at our disposal and how can we actually create something new. And I think oftentimes, you know, I think there's been a lot of events, let's say, that have just gone straight to virtual without actually having a deep understanding of the technology. And I'm no expert in technology, but really just kind of slapping the virtual stamp on it instead of really adapting it and changing it to a new kind of audience. Because the virtual, like I could be sitting here on this podcast and I'm not, but, you know, I could be texting at the same time. I could have something going on in the background of my screen. You know, there could be other stuff going around me here at home. So when you're virtual, you're not really as present as you would be in the live events, whether you care to admit it or not, I think. So again, it's how can we use the technology that we have and kind of change and harness that as a positive instead of a negative, you know. And so for me, I heavily rely on Zoom, for example. I create my YouTube series through there. And then I also have really been diving into social media in terms of how can I share my expertise. So I'm learning lots of like new tricks and new apps to use for Instagram. And, you know, one thing I'm currently doing right now is my interviews for the experience creators are, you know, 30 to 40 minutes. And I want to actually start taking out some clips so I can share. If somebody doesn't want to watch 40 minutes of an interview, to share like 1 minute segments on my Instagram. So I'm currently right now like learning the best way, the most time efficient way to actually do that so that I can continue to kind of share my message and what my brand is about through other ways than just here is the interview. So gosh, I think there's just so many different like new apps and I'm constantly reaching out to people that I know that are like very tech savvy, or if I see something on Instagram, I'll say, oh my gosh, how did you do that? Tell me, like I want to be able to do that as well. So that's what I've been focusing on from a tech point of view this year.
Very nice. Where is your expectation for the future also in terms of work and try to create like this experience?
I think I really want to bring 2020 has been interesting in the sense that, you know, there's a lot of solo living, you know, there's a lot of isolation, a lot of negativity that comes along with that, a lot of hardship, and, you know, also a lot of polarity in terms of different things going around the world, viewpoints, people attacking each other. And what I really want to focus on is bringing the magic back to experiences. And no matter what the experience is, how can we make it so impactful that you are really going to remember it, and it can change the trajectory of, even if it's just your day. I think it's so important right now. We all have had incredible stress for whatever that means for your reality, but how can we really focus on the experiences that we're offering and not just make it a really average, like, buy this, you know, or buy this ticket, come on this experience, but how can we actually make it transformational and make it impactful in some way? And so that's really what I'm focusing on, and where I see my position and what I'm trying to do going is, how can I want to be able to influence experiences around me to make them more magical, just like, and a lot of that comes from Cirque du Soleil, right? You know, when you sit down after 1.5, 2 hours at a Cirque du Soleil show, you're just going to be blown away. You're probably going to like be so confused about what you saw, about how incredible these athletes are, like doing all these tricks. You're like, how do they even do that? And then another great thing that a show like that does is it makes you think about your own life, right? Like, wow, look at the journey of that character, and okay, how can I feel really inspired to go back and do something in my own life, or to connect with someone else, or learn a new skill. And so that's really that magic and that excitement and that kind of new perspective. That's really what I'm trying to achieve with the work that I'm doing with clients. It's a big ask. It's a big kind of overarching goal. But I think as long as I keep that as my focus, then I'm really going to be able to make impact on a smaller scale with the people that I'm working with.
Incredible. I really like to talk with you because you talk with love. Yourself.
Absolutely, it's so inspiring, like really magical, like what you do, and like, yeah, I find everything really inspirational, like really good to see and hear, like when we are going like through this like so difficult year, and you bring like that light and that beautiful energy that I think that both Raquel and I are like really yeah, inspired.
Let's go to change the world.
Yeah, exactly. One great experience can change someone's world. Don't forget it.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you so much, Carolene, for being with us. It has been a pleasure. Please do stay in touch with us. We are for sure going to follow like everything you do, and we are going to share all your social media channels and website. We are going to add it to the video on YouTube too, so that people can follow you too. And well, to our listeners, I would like to say to please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at the Business Events Podcast, and get in touch if you would like to be a guest in our podcast. And our email is info@thebusinesseventspodcast.com. So Carolene and Raquel, it was really a pleasure to speak with you both today. What a great start of the week.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Yeah.
Obrigada.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you.